So if you're studying for the Ontario bar or thinking about it, you've gotten the materials, you're not sure where to begin, you're feeling a bit lost. I was there, that was me last year. So I've pulled together the 10 tips that have helped me pass the bar exam. Stay tuned. Hi YouTube, my name is Keisha Marie. I am a content creator doing career videos, mostly about law. I do planner videos and travel videos, and I've started a new YouTube channel. So if you're interested in following me on my journey, I'd love to have you part of the community. Please like and subscribe to this video as there'll be more. Yes, let's get started. I've wanted to do this video because when I've made the decision to write the bar exam, the Ontario bar exam last year, I was scrolling the internet and not finding much more research on other people's experiences with specifically the Ontario bar. There may be more videos out now, but when I was looking, I couldn't find much. I found videos on the bar exams in other jurisdictions, especially in America, but nothing specific to Ontario. So I wanted to pull together tips that have helped me when I was studying last year, and I've passed the two exams, Solicitor and Barrister, and I'll dive deep into what I did. I've seen a lot of questions online about what's more difficult, the Solicitor or Barrister exam. And for me, the Solicitor was a bit more challenging because there were more areas of law that I was unfamiliar with. I studied law in the UK, do a separate video on all that, but there were a couple of laws that I hadn't really dived deep into while I was studying. So things like corporation law, didn't really know anything about that, taxes, things like that, other than the what Canadians know about taxes, very little, but that we pay them, but nothing law related. So I found the Solicitor exam slightly more challenging than the Barrister, which had like criminal law on there and family law, which I was familiar with and interested in. So it depends. I can't say that the Solicitor is harder. It was just more challenging for me because I was unfamiliar with more of the areas of law that were on the Solicitor exam. Yes, you can. I am an example of that. I think, though, you have to be quite strategic about how you do that, and you have to be disciplined with how you study. So I worked full-time in my job, but I did take annual leave for a week or two so that I had more core days of study time. But when I was working, I woke up earlier to get my hours in. I had to use my lunch hour and after work to study, and unfortunately weekends I was in the house studying or in a coffee shop studying on the weekends. But basically my life for those 8 weeks when I was doing the Barrister, studying for the Barrister exam, was taken up by studying. And why I say the Barrister exam is because I did the Barrister first, and then the Solicitor exam was a week or two after. But when I got the materials, as you will see, when you get the materials, it is a lot of reading. It's quite intense. And working full time, I decided quite quickly that I probably wasn't going to be able to get through both Barrister and Solicitor and do well, or pass, let's say. So I decided to move my Solicitor exam to the second sitting, which is later on in the year, so I just could focus on the Barrister exam. And I would say if you're working full-time, perhaps you can look at that strategy. If you're not, if you don't need to pass these exams right away, I would say delay one, like postpone a second one for the other sitting, because it would be way too much to study full-time and work full-time and, you know, stay sane kind of thing in that, if you're juggling all three things. So I did that. I just focused on the Barrister for the first one, then decompressed after that exam and got to studying for the Solicitor in the summer. Are practice exams helpful? They were for me. I used Edmund Prep, which I'll link below. I thought the practice exams were very helpful. I did them for the Barrister and Solicitor. I did one each a week before I wrote the exam. The Edmund ones, I will say, were quite challenging. I got a lot wrong in the exam, in the practice exam, and that helped you because then you think, okay, you're not overly confident. Or helped me. I wasn't overly confident in going into the exam thinking, oh yeah, it's gonna be easy, it's gonna be a cakewalk. No, I was like, okay, what did I get wrong? I looked over those concepts. The practice exams were very good in giving you a detailed explanation on each answer, so not just the right one, but the wrong ones and why they were wrong. So I used that to help me better understand some concepts, and it worked. I passed. So I would say if you can afford it, do the practice exams, at least one a week before, and hopefully that will help you just getting familiar with the questions and how they will be worded, or how they'll be, it simulates the exam, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Even though they're not affiliated with the Law Society at all, the Law Society does not give out any practice exams themselves. They do have sample questions, but they are not affiliated with any company out there. But I think Edmund does do a good job of simulating what kind of questions you will get, or the flavor of the questions you will get and how it's worded on the exam, although I think it's much harder than Edmund, but helpful. Tips for you out there. I hope this helps you. The first one being, create a schedule and stick to it. I would say print a blank calendar, and I'll insert my calendar that I used up here somewhere in the video, of the month, and set a reading goal for each day. So when you get your materials, I think it's going to change every year, but it's over 1,000 pages of reading. And they say you should read the whole thing at least once, and I would say that too. I personally, I could not go to an exam having not read the materials at least once. Like, that would just cause me so much anxiety. So I would say have a goal to read through the materials at least once. And that means setting reading goals for each day. So knowing how many pages you have to get through each topic before the exam. So I would print a calendar of the month and set goals. So 50 pages in, let's use criminal law, 50 pages today, 50 pages tomorrow. I should be at topic whatever by this date, this date, this day. And I would set reading goals so that I knew by the end of the month or by this period, I would have finished X, Y, and Z. And you'll find, when you do get the materials, you'll find your reading speed. That might adjust how you set your reading goals. So I thought I could get through, I think I was getting through about 20 pages every hour. It's quite dense, and if you have the materials in front of you, you'll see soon enough that some of the topics are just so dry and dense that it's harder to read, it's harder to follow along, so you're reading slower. But don't get discouraged, because some chapters are easy peasy and you'll just flip through them and you'll smash through your goals. But sometimes it would take longer. So just be mindful of that when you're setting your reading goals. Know that every day you might not get through it all, but having the goal keeps you on track, so that if the next day, okay, I didn't get through 50 pages today, I have 10 pages left to read in the morning, smash through those 10 pages and then get on to your next reading goal. Tip number 2, I would say, is to create your own notes. Now, this is quite controversial because this doesn't work for everyone, but for me, for complex topics, I would get out a piece of paper and pen or get on Canva, and I'll have a B-roll of some Canva documents that I created to help me understand some quite complex legal topics that I was just like, oh my goodness, I don't think I'm gonna remember this, which I'll get onto memorization in a bit. But I'm a creative thinker, so I had to see it visually, and law is quite black, white, gray. This is this, this is this, this is this, this is this date, this is this date. But having a bit of color on a page for dates, I mean using highlighters on your on your notes helps. It brings the material to life a bit. And I'm a bit of a nerd. I had kind of a good time creating my own study notes in Canva, which I could just use color. I could use little mind maps, use little arrows and things to point to things. If you're studying for the Ontario Bar exam, you know that it's open book, so you can bring in whatever materials you want that you think will help you on the day. Being mindful that it is a timed exam, 4.5 hours, so you can't be flipping through a lot of different things to find the answer. But for me, it helped to keep studying interesting. It helped me understand or reinforce legal concepts. I didn't do it for every chapter, I mean that would be insane, but having a visual layout of those concepts for me triggered things in my brain to help me memorize it. And not memorize it, even just help me remember where it was, so that if there was a question on the exam about that, oh yeah, that's on my notes. That note was green, or I labeled all those things green and had big green bubbles. I don't know, my mind is weird, but that's how I thought about it. Tip number 3 is study concepts and not try and memorize everything. So when you get the materials, you'll see it is 1,000 pages of all these concepts, and you won't be tested on everything, obviously, but it gets kind of daunting to think, oh my god, I have to know all of this. You don't, but you do need to know where that information is if you need to refer to it for a question, for an answer. So I would say know important concepts. Obviously, like the examples I gave, I don't know why I'm thinking about divorce, but the process of a divorce, the process of what happens when someone gets arrested, what happens in a police, when a police use a search warrant. Know concepts, know where to find them. What helped me, as I've mentioned before, was to have my own notes on big topics like that. I also wrote in the margins of the pages a lot, so when you're flipping through pages, you can see your notes and see what this long paragraph refers to quickly, because there's just no way you're going to know, or you have time in the exam even to flip to page 520 and know what's on that page. You have to have notes on that page, quick little description of what that paragraph is talking about in case you need to refer to it in the exam. That helped me to write in the margin, not on every single page, but as I said, important concepts, highlight dates, processing times, things like that. Important information that when you flip to that page to find the answer, it is screaming at you when you open that page. Tip number 4, I think I'm at. Tip number 4 is to use the indices, or use indices to help you locate information in the materials. Now this again is a bit of a controversial one, because the indices that I refer to are detailed table of contents that you buy from, again, these companies that aren't affiliated with the Law Society. And I don't have them here because, as you know, in the exam, you take it all in and they throw it all out at the end of the exam. You don't get to keep your materials, so don't get too, attached to them. But these detailed indices relate to the material, or the pages, relate to the concept on the pages of the exam. So, for example, if you refer to S in criminal law, you go to the tab S, and it lists all legal concepts that start with S and what page they are in your materials. So for example, in the exam, if you get a question about a search warrant keyword screaming at you, where is that in your notes? You refer to your indices, search warrant, police officer, at scene of crime or whatever, page 419. Then in your criminal law notes, your criminal law materials, you go to that page, the answer should be there. Now, you don't have to use them. I use them alongside my own study materials. And I cannot tell you in the exam what your brain will do. So let's say for the practice exam, I had a question and I used my notes. Then on the actual exam, a similar type of question, and I use the indices. You just don't know what your brain will, I didn't know what my brain would use at that moment or want to use in that moment to help me locate the information. So I use both, and I think they both helped me, because they both were lifesavers in the exam. So if you can, I know U of T does a free set of indices. However, you do have to wait for the new indices to be released, because every year the Law Society changes the material. So, of course, they change the material. So the indices every year have to change. So you do have to wait a bit. So if you're studying for this sitting, or the first sitting, will take some time for those indices to be released. And so you won't have the updated indices until quite late in your study period. And for me, I didn't like that, because I think it's helpful to have the indices when you're studying. So you can, okay, read the material in the book, flip to get to know the indices and how they work, because they're only helpful if you know how the indices work and how that person has thought of how to lay out all the concepts. So it helps to have it alongside while you're studying. So for me, that's why I used my own notes a lot more. However, as I said, in the solicitor exam, which I took later on in the year, those indices became really helpful because they're all good and updated for the later sitting. The materials from the Law Society you have to print on your own, and it's 1,000 pages roughly, give or take. It is a lot of information. So you want to get a binder, hole punch them. I bounded them, which was a bit pricey now that I think of it, because again, you don't get to keep this material. And for the solicitor exam, however, which was quite a lot cheaper, was to use just a three-hole binder and hole punch them myself at home. And yeah, so the binders work quite well. They're just quite bulky because you're going to have about 5 or 6 different ones, but that works quite well. Just choose a method in the beginning and know that that will be it. It's gone. Once it's gone, it's gone. And choose a method that you can flip through. I think that's the most important thing. You can flip through the materials quickly on the day of the exam. While you're studying, if you're finding it hard to focus for long periods of time, which I think a lot of us do, I mean, some of the areas of law are not so interesting, use an app or use a method like the Pomodoro method, which I think it's been out there, but not a lot of people use it. I found it very helpful when I was studying. So you set it to 25 minutes, and then you get 5 minutes. After 25 minutes, you get 5 minutes of free time to do whatever. So basically dedicate these next couple of weeks to studying. Be disciplined. Know that it's just a period of time. You want to pass these exams. So focus for the next couple of weeks. Get the phone, tell your friends and family this is what you're doing. You don't need the distractions. You'll talk to them in certain blocks of time, but this is going to be your life for the next couple of weeks, and the hard part will be over and you'll pass and it'll be all good. So it just gets better from here. I often get asked how many hours I spent studying, and the Pomodoro method, or the app that I use, I could record my study blocks. So roughly for the barrister and solicitor, I recorded 100 hours of study time, including the practice exam, which is 4.5 hours as well. So give or take, each exam was about 100 hours of study time. Don't feel intimidated by 100 hours. It doesn't mean you have to study for 100 hours. That was just me, and that's how my brain works, and that's the number I felt comfortable with, and I used that marker as my marker for my solicitor. So I logged 100 hours for barrister, I passed, and then I'm like, okay, that's the marker, 100 hours is my barrister plan to help me pass the solicitor one. The next tip is more of a life tip around studying, and it's take breaks and exercise. So as I said, the Pomodoro method is great because it gives you dedicated 5-minute breaks in between your 20 or 25-minute periods of focused work. Know that you're taking care of yourself outside of all this studying. So eat what's right for you. do make some time for your friends, do make some time for your family, do the social things that you used to do before studying. All those great things that you were doing before studying, continue to do them. It will do so well for your anxiety levels. Trust said, do LSAT questions to help you practice, not for the flavor of the exam, but to get in that mode of reading and reading comprehension and understanding what the question is asking. I hated everything about the LSAT. However, this tip was really good because it got me back into the reading comprehension aspect, reading what the question is asking me, and then reading through the multiple choice. And as well, the bar exams are multiple choice, so it helps you with that. But I would say in your studying, if you can incorporate doing even just 10 questions on, it's not reading comprehension, it's logical reasoning. Even just 10 questions before you start studying, it gets your mind in that zone. So that was very helpful. Not a tip that's out there, so you're welcome. If you're watching this and you've made it to the end, I wish you well on your barrister and solicitor exams. If you're doing it for the first time, don't panic, you got this under control. And if there's any other helpful tips out there as well that work for you, follow those as well, and you'll do well. On to the next video. Bye.